What's up, guys? It's the punk rock prince, Jordan Kross. In some circles, I may be the luckiest man in professional wrestling. And tonight, I'm drinking at Moe's.
All right, everybody. Want to thank Reaper Apparel for having Drinkin at Moe's be a brand ambassador. They encourage everybody to break out of that comfort zone, live their best self, which, hey, that's what got me starting the podcast. But they got great clothing, great apparel, t-shirts, hoodies, beanies, hats, all that good stuff. Be sure, link will be in the description, and use the code Drinkin at Moe's to get 10% off your order. Let's fucking go.
All right, everybody, welcome Drinkin at Moe's. Big Mo here. Be sure, as I always say, YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, turn on them notifications because it helps with that pain in the ass YouTube algorithm. We're pretty much most places you can find your podcast anymore, but today I'm excited to have with me Jordan Kross. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain. Things picking up. I'm excited because of opportunities I've had through Warrior Wrestling, which we'll go into some stuff with them, and also involved with helping put the word out and promote for the SATs promotion they're heavily involved with out of New York. Wrestling
okay.
is Now. They got a show on the 18th, and they have me a part of their social media tour, doing all sorts of stuff. It's pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yep. Well, first thing I'd like to start off with everybody with is what got you started as a fan, and then you're getting your start in the business.
Well, starting as a fan, I kind of was born into it. So my dad's been a professional wrestler for 22 years. I think he started in 2000, which is the year I was born. So I was literally born into it. I honestly couldn't have cared less the first 15 years of my life while he was out doing stuff in his prime. And then when he decided he wanted to call it quits was when I decided I wanted to start. Because why wouldn't it have been? And he didn't call it quits, and I started, and now here we are tagging, wrestling each other. I started in 2018. I graduated high school, and then had that summer, and then at the end of the summer, I started training with Angel Armani and Silas Young up in Milwaukee. Did that for on and off for a year. Pretty consistent the first 6 months, and then whenever we could. And then the rest of my stuff, I kind of just picked up on the road. I never really had a home per se of training or like a home school or anything. Obviously I could pick things up from my dad, but he was not my trainer, contrary to what some might think. But I knew he never handed me anything, but I knew if I needed a pointer or I needed a direction, he would be the one I could go to.
Well, you hear a lot about that with like the second and third generation people that, their fathers or mothers, their uncles, whatever it might be, they might give them a foot in the door and they'll kind of steer them in a direction that they think they need to go. But then after that, it's pretty much on them. So kind of a common theme there, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like if someone's doing all of it for you, what are you doing for yourself? And then on the flip side of that is if you don't pick something up right away, it's hard for the person teaching you who's been doing it for so long to say, why aren't you understanding this when it's something they haven't had to think about in 20 years?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And also goes into, anything that's worth doing, it's worth putting in the work and doing it yourself, and getting out there for professional wrestling is a lot of hard work. And
absolutely,
if you want to get your name out there, nobody's gonna do a better job at getting your name out there than yourself.
Absolutely.
One thing that I was curious, I love hearing origin stories about how people came up with the in-ring personas. And, sometimes at the start, it's kind of a feeling out process, what's going to work, what won't. And then, once you hit that stride, which you definitely do seem to be hitting your stride out there with the punk rock prince, like, how did that all come about there?
So when I started, I was just a guy in cool looking trunks and a track jacket. And after my first match, people said I looked like Jordan Saber Jr., which was funny because it was true. So I had to start to change things because I didn't want to be compared that early on. And then me and my former tag team partner, Cal Hero, the Fanny Pack Kid, were the Fanny Pack Party for a couple of matches. But that was his thing. That wasn't me. Then I was just a guy with long, wet hair and cool, shiny trunks and kick pads. And I didn't know what that was. And then I kind of just didn't know what I was doing or who I was. And my dad brought me to a couple of local punk shows because he's been a punk since he was a kid. I got into skateboarding, and then it kind of spiraled from there. He gave me the idea. He said, "Why don't you call yourself the Punk Rock Prince?" And then he said, "All right, take that and go do your thing." And I think with the combined efforts of me and him and outside input from local punk shows, going to the Rave in Milwaukee and seeing bands like The Offspring and Pennywise and Rise Against, so many outside influences that have just really molded who I am as a person, which directly spilled into who I am as a character.
No, that definitely seems to be a habit with a lot of people when coming up with their in-ring personas, is almost a bit of an extension of yourself. Like, oh, I was just talking about this the other day with somebody about how Stone Cold Steve Austin literally said that character is just him turned up to like 10 or 11.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Stone Cold Steve Austin, my absolute favorite. I joke about it that I don't get starstruck too easily, but if I ever met him, I don't know. I have stuff I'd love to have him sign, but I'd just be like,
everyone's got a couple of those, whether they want to admit it or not.
Oh yeah, and he is definitely one of mine. Absolutely. But where I first got introduced to you and the Punk Rock Prince was through my friends over at Warrior Wrestling. I've actually been featured on a handful of the pre-shows that they have, which I'm forever grateful to them for giving me that opportunity. But you've been on a bit of a win streak there. I mean, I don't know. I haven't talked to Steve in a while, so I'm not sure what the future is holding, because I know they had a whole bunch of shows planned for the summer. But like I said, you're definitely on a bit of a win streak there with some great matches with people like one that jumps out to my mind was EC3.
Yep.
What's things been like there with Warrior and getting on that win streak, because they've been against like not just EC3, but some of the people are no slouches in their own right.
Sure. Yeah. So the journey to Warrior, it's a bit of a windy road, and Henry Jasper, who's like their social media and digital guy, he actually came out to Kenosha to the punk bar that I usually go see local bands at. We filmed a bit of a mini documentary about it. I started reaching out to Warrior in 2019, and I got the first thanks but no thanks from Steve. Then I got to send us your stuff. Sent to my stuff, didn't hear anything. Gets to be February of 2020. I said, any chance I could come help out? Like, I'm not asking for anything. All I want to do is help. He said, unfortunately, we got it all figured out. Please reach out to us next month. Next month happens. It's March of 2020. The world shuts down. They announced Stadium Series, which at that point, I don't think no one gives anyone enough credit in professional wrestling when it comes to how we came out of that.
Yeah.
But Warrior did it with the 10-foot by 10-foot plot of land. You can bring 4 people, and whatever you want to do in that 10 feet is what you do with Stadium Series. And I think that was probably one of the greatest things to happen.
Oh yeah, no, very unique concept that, definitely nowadays, unique concepts in professional wrestling are definitely few and far between. And
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
definitely did something with that.
Yeah. So going into that, I had reached out again and they said, sure, if you want to come help out, you can come help out. We'd love to have you. I go. I think I did my best to impress everyone, and that obviously it worked out because the next month was September, which started the Stadium Series events, the 3 in a row. First week I came and helped out. Second week I ended up having a dark match. And then later in the show would be called out by Robert Ego Anthony and Frank the Clown. Would lead to a bit of a hardcore. I won't say it's a match because the bell never rang. A scuffle with Frank the Clown, where I was put through a door. Yeah. Next show, I came and helped out, and then for months after that, I came and helped out and helped out and helped out. It wouldn't be until October of 2021 that I ended up getting another shot with a pre-show match against Trevor Outlaw in a losing effort. Then fast forward to April of 2022 in South Bend, Indiana. Was it South Bend? Yeah. Is that that's the cool arena, right?
Yeah, I'm wanting to say so. Yeah,
Okay.
They did have a very cool arena that they did show. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was there. I was hanging out with my people there, and they're like, "Hey, do you have your stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." They're like, "Okay, we got a match for you." I get to the ring, and I had no idea who I was wrestling because it was in such a pinch, and it happened to be Calvin Tankman, and I'm like, well, why do these guys not like me? I'm not scared of many men, but Calvin Tankman's that's a big boy.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a match that happened, and obviously not in a winning fashion. But then me, Steve, and Eric started talking, and they're like, "Hey, we have this idea. We think you'd be great. Do you want a shot on the main roster?" And I said, "Yeah, no, I'm not going to say no to that. Thank you."
Yeah.
So then in October, I had my first match on the main roster against Sam Beal, who is absolutely great. I don't have a bad thing to say about him. And I won by unconventional method by dropping a lucky coin, which I found on my way to the ring, in his mouth, and he choked, but winner by any means. After that match, EC3 would come out and challenge me. After months of back and forth between Control Your Narrative and Great Lakes Championship Wrestling up in Milwaukee and social media and Warrior now. So that was a culmination of a lot of stuff. Would lead to December, where I faced him. And once again, he gave me an opening to use that lucky coin, and I took it, leading to the second only count-out victory in the history of Warrior Wrestling.
I do remember that one,
which is a stat that I had no idea of. Thank you to Rich Bocchini of the commentary team of Warrior for that stat. Then in February of 2023, I got the chance to wrestle Carlos Romo at Talia Hall in Chicago, which is honestly, I'd say, one of my favorite matches I've ever had. Me and Carlos have a lot of similarities. He's a punk rocker in a punk band. Obviously, I don't have a band, but I'm a punk rocker. We come from 2 completely different places with one thing in common, and that's a love of wrestling and punk rock. And I think me and him tore it up that night. All of these matches, by the way, are available for free on Warrior's YouTube page. And then in March in Grand Rapids, I was put up against the Beast Man, which if anyone saw that match, that was not an easy one for me to take. That was a lot more taken and a lot less given. But
I was watching.
Yeah,
I did a preview show with Steve for that.
That was a rough match. I don't know who thought that was an okay idea to put me in there with a man or a beast or both, which is what he is. But I pulled it out of the bag, and he hit himself in the face with that bone of his, bless his heart. And now we're 4-0 at Warrior Wrestling, and I honestly have no idea what the future holds, but I know that I don't plan on ending that streak anytime soon.
Oh, no, I would imagine not. I mean, who knows what, like you said, who knows what the future holds, but, I know I for sure wouldn't mind you going up against another one of Frank the Clown's little weasels, who actually holds the now Warrior Wrestling World title, Casey Navarro, who's on a bit of a hot streak of his own.
That is true. There's definitely a color clash there, which I think is symbolic. My all dark versus his all pink. Me, who likes to play the safe side, him who likes to win by devious tactics by using Frank the Clown. I think that match is inevitable at this point in time. I don't know where, I don't know when, but I would be willing to bet that match will happen.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't talked to Steve in a little bit, but yeah, I'm definitely going to be putting that one in his ear, even though even if I'm sure he probably at some point has thought of it himself, but I'm definitely putting that little one in his ear.
I've been paying attention to Twitter, and people have been shooting out some very obscure people for me to face for me to end this streak. I saw one person say they wanted to see me go against PCO. If you want to end my streak, that's definitely one of the ones that I don't want to say I could see doing it, because I don't see anyone ending my streak, but that's definitely a threat to it.
I've been lucky enough to see him live at least once, and it was in a Monsters Ball match, and holy shit, the stuff that guy at his age is capable of and putting his body through, it's something else.
Yeah, I love him to death. He's a very nice guy. He's been great to me. I've been lucky to have several interactions with him, but he's one man. Like that's an intimidating guy. Like, he is not a man. He's a monster. He is not kidding.
Oh yeah. No, there's definitely that thing when that camera's on him. You never know what to expect from PCO.
Yeah. So, I mean, Twitter has definitely spoken their mind of who they want to see me against. I saw one person say Speedball. That one, I don't really want to. I don't want to get kicked by him.
His kicks are definitely lethal.
Me and him have the same head of hair, and we bond over that. So I think that's where we need to keep this, is just love for the mullet.
Okay.
But I really hope Principal Steve does not pay attention to who Twitter requests for me.
I guess we'll see. I mean,
yeah, we will.
they do have that knack for putting some rather unique matches together. So
yes, they do. Which I'm confident in the fact that I'm 4-0 now, but I fear the future because of who they have put me against. But looking at who they've put me against, for me to have put all four of them down, I don't know if there's anyone that could stop this luck streak right now.
That is a good way to think about it. Before we go on to two categories I like to do with everybody, in doing my research, my dog is acting crazy right now. Anyways, you have actually had a couple of matches with AEW, and I like asking everybody that has done work for them what was it like for you? Because I've heard really nothing but good things from people that have done work with them, whether it be extra work, whether it be on Dark, whether it be a short little match on Rampage or whatever it might be.
Sure. I've been lucky and fortunate enough to, in my short time in professional wrestling, do extra work for, I'd say, the big four companies in New Japan, Impact, WWE, and AEW. And honestly, there's not a bad thing I could say about any of them. All of them have been absolutely amazing. All of them have been very different experiences. Like at New Japan, I was sitting on the guardrail, me, Vic Capri, and Storm Grayson, I believe, was there, doing like young lion jobs, like holding the barricade and ensuring safety and clearing the way. And just the way they do things at New Japan is so much different than your other companies. At Impact, I did gear running, and I got to do some other backstage stuff. And the way they do everything is so much different. WWE, same thing. I I've gotten to do a few things there, just hanging out, and the way they do things is so much different. And then AEW getting to wrestle, it's just a surreal experience. Like, this is on TV right now, and now I'm also here wrestling in the same building, in the same arena. So each of the companies offers such a different experience, and there's not one that anyone could walk away from without feeling A, more confident, and B, like they've learned a ton. Like, I learned more in my couple of days at all of these places than I could have ever dreamed of. Like, there's so many things. If you just keep your eyes and ears open and your mouth shut, there's nothing you can do but learn, observe, and take things back. And that is something I'll be forever grateful for.
Oh yeah, I can imagine, and just being able to, even for a short period of time, getting to sit under the learning tree of people that have been on all of those rosters. I mean, the talent that goes through New Japan, Impact, AEW, the talent on those, and getting to interact with whoever it might be on those rosters, it's just an amazing opportunity that I can only imagine anybody that gets the chance to do that is extremely thankful for.
Yeah, it's if you would have told me 4 years ago or 5 years ago, when I was going to NXT, a house show in Green Bay, or going to All In, that I would have these opportunities, and especially as fast as I've been lucky enough and grateful enough to have had them, I don't know if I would have believed you. Like, I went to All In 2018, the week before I started training to wrestle at the Sears Arena, and 4 years later, almost to the day, in the exact same building, I got to be a part of Kip Sabian's entrance at All Out. And just to be able to put this picture side by side, to see me in the stands freaking out that Chris Jericho showed up to attack Kenny Omega, to 4 years later be in the ring the night before at AEW to be on Dark against Tony Nese and Josh Woods. Like, it's almost hard for me to comprehend that I'm the same person physically that I was then.
I can imagine. And talking about some of those names, I have two categories that I like to go over everybody with. And
Sure.
I try to get people that you've either been in the ring with, or you've at the very least share a locker room with at some point.
Sure.
And you give me the first thoughts that come to your head on each person.
Okay.
Starting off with big man himself. We talked about a few big men here. Adam Scherr, better known to most people as the monster Braun Strowman.
I was fortunate enough to team with him at GLCW last summer, and big man is no lie. That man is huge. One of the nicest guys you could ever meet, took care of everyone, and he was willing to do whatever anyone else wanted to do. That man left nothing back. He is one of the realest people you could ever meet.
That is awesome. And I've heard stuff like that about him. So it's good, hearing the good side of wrestling, because there's, as in lots of things, there's so much negativity out there. Hearing the good side of stuff, definitely a great thing. Next up, a guy that was on a bit of a hot streak there and looking to bounce back from losing the TNT title, Powerhouse Hobbs.
That man is stronger than I think anyone could imagine he is, including himself. Great guy, learned a ton being in the ring with him, but holy smokes, does that man hit hard.
Oh man, I can imagine. I've been lucky enough to see him live one time, and good Lord, just watching him on TV, you can just tell that, goddamn, some of those moves just look like they hurt like hell.
In the match that I had against him and Starks, Mark Henry, after his second slug to my chest in the corner, he goes, "Oh man, go ahead and finish him." Oh yeah, he's a strong man, but a very, very good guy.
Oh yeah, no, that's awesome. And talking about hard hits, I remember we talked a little bit about Warrior Wrestling. I remember being there in St. Louis. Steve invited me down to be a part of the fan fest and all that.
Sure.
And it was the night, well, now going back by Bronson Reed, but Jonah versus Jeff Cobb.
Ooh.
And I was sitting close enough to when those two chopped each other, you could see the individual beads of sweat just flying off of them. It was, my chest hurt just watching it.
They go into that category of guys that are stronger than they think.
No, most definitely. And some of the stuff that I saw them do that night, and also a guy that, his build, you'd think he's strong, but another guy that was there that night, Alex Coughlin, New Japan, that movie that he was like sitting down, had
the seated deadlift.
The seated deadlift. He did that night against Uemura.
Yep.
Holy crap!
That man is so strong. I find myself often going on his Instagram and just scrolling to watch videos of him doing that. The fact that his Instagram handle is something deadlift says more than anything that you could see would be. Like it says more about him than it should.
Oh no, and I have nothing but good things to say about him and Uemura, because out of everybody that was there that day, they were the first two that came by and shook everybody's hand, from the podcasters to the announcers to the people that were there selling wrestling figures and stuff. Everybody made everybody feel totally welcome. Nothing but love and respect for those guys.
Absolutely, very humble, and they both came through the New Japan dojo. That's the first thing they teach, is how to humble yourself, and they are both very respectful and respectable individuals.
Definitely. Back to the list, a guy that you, kind of brought up there a little bit before we started this category. Guy teaming up with Josh Woods, Tony Nese.
Premier athlete is no lie. That man is in the best physical condition at any time. At the drop of a hat, he is ready to go for any opportunity. I was actually a very big fan of his growing up. There's a few pictures on my Instagram of me and him outside of the Allstate Arena in Chicago. And then I also met him at Blizzard Brawl GLCW event back in 2015 or 16. So watching him there, watching him in the Cruiserweight Classic, and then getting to share the ring with him was just absolutely surreal. Nothing but great things to say about him. Great guy and incredible wrestler, and just absolute peak, the best.
Oh, totally. And I can imagine after, so many years of watching him and getting to, like you said, getting to be in the ring there with him, had to be kind of a surreal in a good way experience, because you're like, holy crap, I remember watching this guy and now I'm actually sharing a ring with him.
16-year-old me had played my create a character on WWE 2K against Tony Nese. So getting to be in the ring with him for real, that's I don't know if you'd call that manifesting or call it luck, but whatever it is, I'm grateful for it.
Hey, call it both if you want. That's awesome. Next up, last but not least, he seen a lot independent, seen him a lot with Ethan Page on his toy hunt vlogs. Swoggle.
I've known Swoggle for a very long time, like since I was a little kid. So my dad has wrestled him a ton of times and was actually his last match before he went to WWE. So seeing his success as a kid and being like, wow, I've met that guy, to 20-year-old me getting chokeslammed into thumbtacks by him at a Zello Pro show in Milwaukee on a Sunday afternoon. It's become more than full circle, but I consider him to be a friend, and he's always been very good to me.
That's awesome. I've never had the pleasure of getting to meet him, but he's definitely on my list of people that I would definitely love to get to talk to at some point. Next up, I have a bit of a random question category. I really only keep a couple questions on here. Other than that, I never really know what I'm putting on until I put my notes together.
Perfect.
First up, I love asking this one, and that's why I keep this one first. Craziest in-match moment for you?
Oh man. That's a really good question. I think the first time I heard the crowd chanting my name in the middle of a match,
Okay.
that one, because it doesn't feel real until you lock up with the guy and then hear the crowd chanting your name, and it's like, holy cow, this is for real. And then I'll give a little bit of a second answer to that. When I felt Carlos Romo kick me in the back, you see me just blankly stare at the camera because that man brought it. I told him to bring it, and he brought it. And that was a match where neither one of us held anything back. And I think the whole match, both of us were like, holy smokes, we are really hitting each other. But you know what? I said earlier, I think that's one of my favorite matches I've ever had. And we both left it out there, and we put everything into it, and it showed.
That's awesome. That was a good match. I do remember watching that one, and one that I love talking about this one crazy moment that I've witnessed that I'm actually good friends with the guy that was involved in this moment. It was this promotion here in Omaha, their version of Money in the Bank, but they called it Piggy in the Bank. They had a piggy bank that they have, and they hang it up, and they had this ladder bridged between the guardrail and the ring apron. And I see my friend who, a side story, I made him the best man at my wedding because he introduced me to my wife.
Holy cow.
And he had this guy on the ring apron, but he had him in a move. I don't know. I'm having a brain fart on what he called it, but very reminiscent of Sheamus and the White Noise thing that he does.
Sure.
Arm, his head's under there, legs up there.
Yep.
And I'm on the other side of the ring, and I see him look down at the ladder, and I'm like, oh no. Jumps, ladder folds, and they both disappear on the other side of the ring. Yeah. It was nuts.
No thanks.
Oh, I've got one that tops even that. Jake Christ. And he does, some of the death match, he does some of the regular stuff. But you can imagine some of the matches that he's been involved in where some of this might end up going. But it was at Sami Callihan's promotion, Wrestling Revolver. Sure. And he had a Iowa death match against Joel Bateman, and they ended it by 4 folding chairs, and then they bridged 2 panes of glass on the 4 folding chairs, and then his manager, I see him woggle in there, and I see him pull out a thing of lighter fluid. Yep. Lit the glass on fire. It was insane.
Oh, I mean, respect to everyone involved. That's not it for me. That's not my thing. I wouldn't personally want to, but I mean, good on them. That's
yeah. I've actually got to talk with both Jake and his manager for the podcast. I had Jake on shortly after he had that video where he burned the IWA Mid-South belt. Sure. Like literally right after that came out. And I was like, I like to describe it in the way that Paul Heyman describes how he got Stone Cold into ECW, where he's like, you got a grievance, I got a show, let's air it. And we ended up having him on, and it was awesome. One of my favorite episodes, and actually one of my top listened to ones on the podcast platform. So I'm excited with how that one's going. Well, anyways, on to the next question. Being the punk rock prince, I figured why not have a music related question in here? What would you say are some songs on a playlist that you might have, getting ready for a show?
Damn It by Blink-182 will always be the first on there.
Okay.
That's my entrance music. That was the first song at the first local punk show I ever heard, was a cover of Damn It. Dig Up Her Bones by the Misfits. Where Eagles Dare by the Misfits. I Believe in Miracles and Pet Cemetery by the Ramones.
Okay.
And then we'll go away from punk for a minute. I Dementia by Whitechapel, if we want to get a little deathcore in there.
Okay.
Lucid by the Australian band Polaris is a good one. And then I also have a love for 80s music. Stan Bush, who did the song The Touch for the Transformers 1986 album.
Okay.
I love The Touch. I love a lot of other stuff by him. So yeah, my playlist is all over the place. I have a little classical. I got some Frank Sinatra in there. I like Christmas music all the time. Like I have a little bit of everything.
Oh man, that just gets me thinking the joke that I have that with how Christmas stuff seems to get out there earlier and earlier every year, that before we know it, Christmas in July isn't just going to be some clever marketing gimmick.
Nope.
But you brought up Blink-182. I actually, now that the original guys are reunited, that's exciting enough. But before that, they actually had a show that got postponed a couple times due to the pandemic, but then it finally happened. And I think this was the first time I can't remember the name of the song, but I heard it and it was just basically a bunch of cuss words,
Family Reunion. I know that song by heart and I can't say any of the words on this show.
I remember the first time I heard that and I'm like, what did I literally just hear?
The only word that I can say comfortably on this podcast is fart.
Oh man. Yeah, no, it was something else, but I'm glad the original guys are getting back out there.
Absolutely.
That video they did where it's a bunch of people saying they're coming and making it sound dirty. That was hilarious. It cracks me up to this day when I see that pop up.
Yeah, Blink is I'm so glad they're back and touring, and I hope that means that that's going to be a thing for a while.
Although before they got back together, I do remember seeing a video of that. I feel bad. Tom, the guy that ended up splitting for a bit.
Sure.
He was at, and I recognize the stadium because I was stationed in San Diego. He was at a Padres baseball game, and all of a sudden, in between innings or whatever it might have been, they ended up playing a Blink-182 song, and it's just the video scanning the crowd, and then it's him looking like, "What the fuck?" It was hilarious.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna have to look that one up again. Anyways, on to the next question. I would feel weird if I didn't have a question like this with a name of a show like Drinkin at Moe's. Favorite drink, whether alcoholic, non, or one each?
Right now, sugar-free Starry.
Okay.
I'm a big Starry guy. I don't drink soda, but sugar-free Starry has been my jam.
Okay.
Otherwise, Redcon energy drinks have been my thing. Otherwise, I'm really just a water guy. I don't drink.
Hey, I always tell people, not to interrupt you, but I always tell people, just because the show says Drinkin at Moe's doesn't mean that drink needs to be alcoholic.
Sure. Yeah, no, I had alcohol one time. on my 21st birthday, after a Warrior show, it turned midnight and we were on the way back to the hotel. And I was like, oh, I'm 21. And they're like, all right, let's go. And Thunder Rosa got me 5 shots of tequila, and Alan Angels got me a Jack and Coke. And I was still standing at the end of the night, and I will not tempt fate ever again.
Yeah, that's definitely definitely one way to start off being legal.
Yeah, that was my first and only time ever having alcohol.
Yeah, go out while you're on top.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was the Chipotle burrito, the lack of sleep, and the 3 bang energies I had before that kept me standing, but I felt fine, and I will never, never, ever attempt that again.
Yeah. When it comes to non-alcoholic for me, my wife jokes with me about having a Dr. Pepper problem.
That's okay.
But I'll drink the regular, I'll drink the diet, but I always tell her I don't have a problem. I have it figured out. The only time I have a problem is when I don't have any.
Yeah. that is a good way to look at it.
That's the way I choose to look at it. Next question. Lots of people talk about different rituals they have, for pre-show, getting ready, getting psyched up. Do you have any pre-show rituals?
Honestly, not that have lasted more than 5 shows. For a little bit, I would do handstand push-ups up against the wall and just clear my head. Sometimes I like to go for a little jog if I can get outside. Right now, it's really just thrown in my earbuds with whatever song is next on my shuffle. I just hit shuffle, listen to one song, think about everything I got going on in my head, throw my headphones back in the bag, and wait for my music to hit.
Right. That's a good way to do it, because I know sometimes when I've had to kind of just zone out for a bit, having headphones in, listening to a song, like you, the list of songs on my phone covers the whole damn gambit. So there's some that help get me amped up. There's others that, if I'm needing to kind of just zen out for a minute, I got that. So
absolutely.
It's definitely good. Last but not least, best advice for anybody wanting to get into wrestling.
I was given this advice by someone I looked up to, and within reason, don't take no for an answer. Obviously, no means no. I shouldn't have to clarify that. But in a wrestling facet, my perfect example, Warrior Wrestling. First time I reached out, thanks, but no thanks. Second time I reached out, thanks, but no thanks. Third time I reached out, thanks, but no thanks. Fourth time, I'm sure Steve was just sick of seeing my name in his inbox, so he gave me an opportunity, and that opportunity spiraled into this podcast taking place. So does no mean no? Sure. But use your judgment. If you think, hey, I think I could offer something, go about it differently. If 10 people are saying, here's my last 3 matches and a promo and 4 pictures of me in the ring, make a resume, make a business card, have a pitch. How can you become beneficial to them? How can you do something for everyone involved? When I came to Warrior Wrestling, I just was another wrestler with shiny gear. When I met with Steve and Eric, I actually had a long phone call with Steve last year, probably April or May. And I said, Steve, I have a question. He said, what's the question? I said, how do I get booked at Warrior regularly? And we had a long talk, and he gave me a list. He said, this is what we look for. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is why we do it. And I went out and I wrote all of his things down in a checklist, and I checked them as I did them. I sent that back and I said, Steve, here we go. What do we got to do? And that's how this all came to be. So it's, when you're told no, take that no and don't get discouraged. Use it as motivation. Find out why no was the answer. If you want to wrestle somewhere and they say no, why did they say no? Were you not ready? Are you not what they need right now? Do they not have a spot for you? If they don't have a spot for you, figure out how to put yourself into a spot. Pitch things. come up with ideas, be creative. If everyone is doing the same thing and one person does something just this much different, that's going to stand out. So make yourself useful, make yourself worthwhile, and give yourself something to give you the edge to stand out. It's just like a job interview. If 10 people come in wearing jeans and a polo and you come in wearing a suit, you're the one that stands out.
No, definitely.
So treat pro wrestling like you would treat a job interview for your dream job, because that's essentially what it is.
Yeah. And the way I would think about it, kind of adding on to what you said, is like, if somebody were to say no, that really just means no at that moment.
Absolutely.
You never know, like, hey, you got something you need to improve on. You go improve on that. You go back. And like you did, persistent, got in there. Before you knew it, you basically made it to where they couldn't ignore you anymore.
Exactly. There's a song that actually by Enzo Amore, and he said, make them pay attention, make it so they can't ignore you, make it so that money ain't something to award you. And that's actually something that stuck with me through all of this.
That is a very good way to put it. And it's something that I've kind of done when trying to put together stuff for the podcast. Yeah, I've had places kind of ignore me. And
Sure.
then I go and I'm like, you know what? I've lost count of how many times that when I reach out to somebody, I'm like, especially when I first started, I'm like, this might be a long shot, but let's see if this sticks. And then
Absolutely.
boom, before you know it, I'm having guys like the SATs. I'm having guy that used to own Ring of Honor, Kerry Silken, Bronson Reed, goddamn Alex Cologne.
Sure.
And before you know it, I'm people that were ignoring me at first are now like, yeah, let's do this. So
yep. And that's all it is. It's persistence, it's consistency. Just like life. If there's something that you want and you can't afford it, you work, you get money, and then you make it so that you can afford it. You just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and don't let the word no discourage you. Like, if any wrestler tells you they've never thought about quitting, they're lying directly to your face. I've had plenty of times where I thought maybe this isn't for me. And then I give it a little bit longer, and then something starts to click, and then something else starts to click. And now here we are. You literally just have to keep going.
Yeah, because you never know. You might be on the verge of thinking you want to quit, and maybe just that last little push was all you needed to get right to where you wanted to be.
Exactly.
Well, before we go, I wanted to give you a chance. Where can people find you social media wise? So if they don't already have their eyes on you, they can go ahead and get them there.
Sure. I appreciate that. So all of my social media is at the Jordan Kross, Kross with a K. If you go to any of my social medias, I usually have a link tree in the bio. I know Instagram and Twitter I do. Facebook is the Punk Rock Prince Jordan Kross. I have a pro wrestling tees. If you look up Jordan Kross on there. What else do I have? I have like all the social medias. I think that's it. The Warrior did a documentary on me. If you haven't seen that, you want to see some matches, you can go to Warrior's YouTube page, and I think it's like the luckiest man in wrestling, Jordan Kross. But yeah, I think that's it. I don't have any shows coming up. I kind of took the rest of the month of May off. And any shows that I'm on, obviously, will be on my social media, so you can catch them there.
Definitely. Well, that is about all I have. I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me tonight. And
Absolutely.
Best of luck once you get done with that break and are getting back out there. I'm excited to see what you got coming.
First weekend of June, we're back. It's more of a pause, not a break.
Yeah, a little pause. That would
it's just letting everything heal, taking care of some personal stuff, taking care of some school stuff, and we'll be back on the road starting in June.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.